Hello guys. Welcome back to my channel. What if Naruto become a cold genius? Part 1. Tell me again why we're letting some random stranger stay here again. Uchiha Sasuke, also 16 years of age, grumbled, trying hard not to glare too hard at the person across from him. Said person, his father Uchiha Fugaku, crossed his arms and donned an impatient scowl. Be quiet Sasuke, he snapped. This random stranger is a daughter of one of my old colleagues, and if she's anything like him, she will make a great addition to this household. You should be honored to have a member of such a prestigious family staying here. Sasuke scoffed. If they're so famous, how come I've never heard of them before? Watch your tone, young man. Remember who you're speaking to. Fugaku stood up, matching the younger Uchiha's glower. Son and father glared at each other for a moment, locked in an unyielding battle of wills. After a moment, however, Fugaku relented, breaking the eye contact. He sighed to himself, as though a sudden weight had befallen him. Sasuke stayed where he was, silently observing his father, waiting for the older man to elaborate on his unanswered question. When Fugaku spoke, his voice was heavy with regret. Haruno was such a talented man. He could have done anything he wanted to. He could have become the best of the best. He sighed to no one in particular again. But he threw it all away. Sasuke watched impassively as his father threw his hands into the air. He decided that being a pediatrician in some small unknown town was more worth it than working at one of the world's best hospitals. It was such a foolish choice. I couldn't even believe She's here. Both men turned towards the sudden sound of the front door being opened. Hello? Sasuke could hear his mother's voice drift into the room. Hold on a minute Sakura, dear. Now where is that husband and son of mine? We're in the parlor, his father answered as he reseated himself on the chair across from his son. What kind of girl would be named Sakura? Sasuke couldn't help but wonder too. The color pink came to mind. He knocked the thought away. There's no way in the world that anybody would have pink. The parlor door opened. Nice to meet you, Uchiha-sama. It's pink. What kind of girl actually had pink hair? That couldn't be natural. Haruno-san, I'm so glad to finally be able to meet you. His father got up once more, extending his arm out to shake Sakura's hand, but instead found himself enveloped in a crushing hug by the petite girl. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sakura repeated over and over again, finally letting the man go before she turned her gaze on Sasuke. Is this the son you were talking about, Makoto-san? Makoto chuckled. Yes, that there is grumpy old Sasuke. That's Sasuke. Her eyes widened. I'm sorry, I thought he was Itachi. His eyes narrowed. Itachi? Me? It's just you said he was the same age as me. She laughed nervously under the Uchiha boy's scrutinizing gaze, and Sasuke-kun looked so much older than I imagined him to be. Sasuke-kun. Fugaku cleared his throat, drawing all attention to him. It was a pleasure to meet you, Sakura. But if you'll excuse me, I have an urgent meeting I have to attend in 30 minutes. Sakura widened her eyes, before bending down into a low bow. Thank you for staying all this time just to meet me, Uchiha-sama. Much to Sasuke's horror, a small, barely visible smile found its way onto his father's lips. You're welcome, Sakura. Don't tell me she's already won his approval. Sasuke glared at the girl, his ire rising at an exponential rate. So, why don't we show you to your room? Uchiha Makoto suggested, once her husband had left the room. That would be wonderful. Sakura flashed the Uchiha a smile. Thank you, Uchiha-san. Oh, please. Sasuke's mother put a hand to her mouth. You must call me Makoto, dear. Thank you, Makoto-san. Sasuke rolled his eyes. Now, Sasuke, take Sakura to her room, won't you? But, do as I say, Sasuke. To any stranger, his mother would have sounded fine. But to the trained ears of the Uchiha boy, he could hear the underlying threat in her tone. God, for such a nice woman, his mother was terrifying. Muttering something incoherent, he opened the door and stepped out into the foyer. Sasuke's room is right down the hall from yours if you ever need anything. He heard his mother tell the girl before she stepped out after him. Where's your luggage? He all but snapped, but the girl didn't seem to take notice to his bad mood. Right here. It was then he noticed the small duffel bag she had slung over her shoulder. Only that much? She does know she's going to be staying here for the entire school year, right? Follow me, he grunted. So, she was speaking again, and he tried to concentrate on anything else but her voice. Of all the girls that had to stay here, why in the world did it have to be one that talked this much? Your name is Sasuke, right? She let out a strained laugh, betraying how nervous she actually was behind that cheery exterior. Well, my name is Haruno Sakura. She gave another smile. It was a rather dazzling one at that. But Sasuke was too busy feeling annoyed with her chatter at the moment to notice anything beyond that incessant talk. So, what are some of your hobbies? Likes, dislikes, goals? Oh, well, Sasuke watched the girl bite her lip out of the corner of his eye. She looked down to the ground, probably disappointed that she was unable to make conversation. I have one certain goal. Sakura's eyes snapped up. I wouldn't call it goal, but an ambition. It's to surpass a certain man. Surpass? She echoed his words. A certain man? He didn't grace her with a reply, instead choosing that moment to come to a stop. Sasuke gestured at the door beside him. This is it. Oh. She came around and opened the door, stepping inside to observe her room for the next year. HN. He turned to leave. Sasuke-kun. He paused, and turned around to glance at her. She gave him yet another smile, albeit much more relaxed and sincere than the previous times. Thank you. The Uchiha gave the barest of nods before turning back around and heading back to his own room. At least she hadn't immediately seemed starstruck, like most girls did when they caught sight of him. Haruno Sakura slumped against the door of her room, finally safe in her quarters. That was close. She sighed, wiping some of the sweat on her palms onto her jeans. He was freaking gorgeous. She groaned at her own train of though. I can't believe I have to live with him for a whole year. A guy like Uchiha Sasuke probably had a ton of girls chasing after him, not to mention, he probably already had an equally gorgeous girlfriend. Shanaru. We'll just have to beat the hell out of all of them, won't we? Inner Sakura was fired up, but the real one quickly shoved her other side back to the recesses of her mind. With another groan, she covered her face with her hands. What have I gotten myself into? For as long as she could remember, Sakura had always wanted to be like her father, the most intelligent and most compassionate man she had ever known in her life. When she found out she had been accepted into the best school in the Fire Country, she was ecstatic. But of course, boarding at the prestigious school cost the same as buying several smaller countries, and she didn't want her family spending all that money just for her education. She would have declined Konoha Academy's offer, but somehow, her father had made contact with an old friend who lived near the school area. Apparently, one of their sons was in the even more prestigious Konoha University, and the other was in the same grade as her. When she'd arrived, she nearly choked at the size of the mansion they lived in. It was beyond words, simply put. But when she saw the son, she was sure she was going to die. Why had her father neglected to mention that she would need to bring a blindfold with her on her journey? There was no way she could stare at something as gorgeous as that all day for an entire school year. What was she going to do? The dinner actually went more smoothly than she expected. Fugaku had not returned from his meeting yet, so it was only Makoto, Sakura, and Sasuke. Excuse me, Makoto-san? Yes, dear. Well, Sakura took a sip of her drink to calm her nerves in the presence of Sasuke, who hadn't even looked up at her voice. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you have another son, don't you? Itachi? I was wondering why I haven't seen him yet. Oh, Itachi. Makoto gave a laugh. He comes and goes as he pleases. I think he has some summer student council meeting tonight. He's president of the entire student body, you know. Really? Sakura let out a gasp of awe. But isn't he only a junior in the university? My father told me he was a prodigy. Guess it's true. Makoto smiled. Oh Sakura, Itachi has been the student body president since the freshman year. That's amazing. Sakura was in shock. How was that even possible? She was completely oblivious to the younger Uchiha sitting next to her, who was currently clutching his napkin so hard that his knuckles were turning white. When dinner was over, Sakura immediately vanished into the adjacent room after collecting everyone's plates. When Sasuke and Makoto wandered in after her, they saw her getting ready to wash all the dishes. Sakura, Makoto took the plates from her. We have a dishwasher. I know, she smiled. But parents always taught me that we shouldn't always depend on machines for something that should be done by our own hands. And besides, it is the least I can do since I'll be living here for a while. Nonsense. Makoto laughed. We're glad to have you, Sakura. I'm sure your parents are great people, but at the Uchiha household, you are a guest. And there is no possibly way that I will let a guest do the dishes. If you say so, the girl sounded unsure, but nevertheless, turned the water off. I just remembered I still have some things I did not unpack yet. If you'll excuse me. Makoto watched Sakura leave before slyly glancing over at her son. She's grown up well, ne Sasuke? Perhaps you could learn a few things from her. When said son responded with a glare, she chuckled before walking over and ruffling his hair. I'm just kidding. Putting the dishes into the dishwasher, she also exited, leaving Sasuke alone in the kitchen. Sasuke rolled his eyes for what seemed like the umpteenth time that night. Nevertheless, he had to admit he was slightly impressed at how easily Sakura seemed to have already integrated herself into the family. Sakura awoke in the middle of the night, with a sudden urge to go use the bathroom. Still half asleep, she wandered outside of her room. Wait! She stopped in her steps, rubbing her eyes as she tried to adjust them to the darkness of the hallway. Where in the world is the bathroom? She looked around, and to her dismay, realized that all the doors looked the same. She couldn't just open random doors. What if she was disturbing someone's privacy? Suddenly, Makoto's words flashed in her mind. Sasuke's room is right down the hall from yours if you ever need anything. I hope he isn't mad at me for barging in on him so late, she whispered to herself. Please don't sleep without a shirt. Please don't sleep without a shirt. Please sleep without a shirt. Please sleep without a shirt, the treacherous inner Sakura cackled. To her complete and utter dismay, she was greeted by at least 5 equally similar-looking doors at the end of the hall. Which one is Sasuke-kun's? She was beginning to grow flustered. After all, she did have a bit of an emergency here. She took a deep breath, and chose the door all the way at the end. Please be him. Please be him. She reached for the knob end. Do you want me to call the authorities? Her heart leapt out of her chest and Sakura covered her mouth to stifle the scream that threatened to escape as she felt someone behind her. What do you think you're doing? The voice was also deep, like Sasuke's, but somehow more refined and cold. Sakura thought, as shivers involuntarily ran down her spine. A voice colder than Sasuke's? Now that was really saying something. She turned around slowly, and stared up at the man before her. He looked strikingly familiar to Sasuke. In particular, those deep onyx eyes that it seemed all the Uchihas had inherited. However, his hair was a deeper hue of black, while Sasuke's hair had almost tinges of blue throughout. Also, this man's hair was tied in a loose hanging ponytail, which Sakura couldn't imagine Sasuke pulling off for the life of her despite only knowing the boy for a few hours. Realization came to Sakura. This was. I didn't know fangirls had become insane enough to start breaking into houses. The older Sasuke lookalike was saying. Sakura snapped out her thoughts, yet couldn't form the words as she cowered under that piercing gaze. Sasuke? He looked down at her. Excuse me. She quickly shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. May I speak to Sasuke-kun? No, please, I need to speak with him. If Sakura had been in another state of mind, she might have realized that it might have just cleared all the confusion if she had stated her name and said she was a guest. Seemingly sensing the girl's desperation, the man, who was obviously Itachi, gently pushed her aside and turned the knob she had been about to turn herself. The room inside was black, but Sakura could make out the figure of a boy sleeping on a bed against the wall. The figure bolted up so fast at the sound of the door opening that Sakura covered her mouth again to stifle yet another gasp of surprise. She had never met such a light sleeper before. Who's there? Sasuke demanded into the darkness, before he spotted his brother in the doorway. Itachi. No, it wasn't just Itachi. As his eyes adjusted, Sasuke saw the pink-haired girl behind his brother, and his eyes immediately narrowed. What in the world is going on? With a quick glance at his clock, he saw that it was only 2 in the morning. What do you want? The question was mostly directed at his brother. Itachi gestured to Sakura. One of your fangirls broke into the house. She seemed desperate to see you. Sasuke looked at Sakura. Fangirl? Sasuke-kun. Sakura squeaked, bowing low. I'm so sorry to be bothering you at this time of night. But her face turned red as she mumbled something inaudible. What is it? Sasuke sighed, getting out of bed. I woke up, and I needed to use. Speak louder. Where is the bathroom? If it had been any other situation, Sasuke would have laughed. Except, 1. Sasuke never laughed, and 2. He was beyond annoyed that he was awakened for this purpose. Use my bathroom for now. Your bathroom? He pointed to the smaller door against the opposite wall of his room. Oh. The girl realized what he was saying and bowed again, before cautiously stepping into his room. Thank you. You know he's not wearing a shirt. Inner Sakura was squealing in delight. Her body moved of its own accord, and Sakura turned around to stare at the delicious abs of Uchiha Sasuke. Now that was a washboard. Holy, are you going to use my bathroom or not? Sasuke's unamused, deadpanned voice snapped her back to reality. Why yes. She squeaked again before hurrying into the bathroom. Sasuke shook his head. All this trouble for a bathroom? Care to clarify, little brother? The younger Uchiha had almost forgotten that Itachi was standing in the doorway. She's the girl that's going to be staying here. Itachi raised an eyebrow. Interesting little creature, no? Sasuke scowled. Get out of my room. Itachi inclined his head in farewell, before stepping back into the shadows of the hallway. As you wish, foolish little brother. I told you not to call me that, When Sakura entered the dining room at 7 in the morning, she was once again surprised to see all the Uchihas sitting there, already eating breakfast. And she had thought she woke up early. Sasuke has informed me of your encounter last night. Makoto gave her a smile. So we won't need to introduce Itachi. Sakura blushed slightly at last night's event. When she had exited Sasuke's bathroom, he had been lying on his bed. He told her that the bathroom was right next to her bedroom, and at that, Sakura had turned redder than a ripe tomato. She had quickly escaped to her own room, and berated herself on her stupidity. Just thinking about it made her want to run back to her own room. Well, sit down and eat with us. Makoto filled her plate with a large pile of food. A grown girl needs to eat after all. Gingerly, she pulled back her chair and sat down next to Sasuke, who hadn't said a word since she entered. But then again, neither had Itachi or Fugaku. Breakfast was eaten in peaceful silence. Sasuke, Fugaku's sharp voice startled Sakura so much that she nearly dropped her glass of milk. It would definitely take some time to adapt to the Uchiha family's ways. Haruno-san and your school supplies list arrived in the mail this morning. Take her today to get the necessary preparations. Sakura choked on the milk. I have to go with him, today. Sasuke made no comment, but stood up from his table, his breakfast finished. He said one word before he left the room, 11. 11? Sakura didn't understand. Makoto patted her hand. He means that he'll be waiting at 11. Sakura nodded her head and looked around, only to realize that person that had been sitting on her other side had also slipped out when no one was watching. I never even heard Itachi-san leave. I'm here, Sakura exclaimed happily as she came down the stairs. You're late. She glanced down at her watch. It's only 11:01, damn it. I'm really sorry. Her outer self apologized. He grunted and opened the door to what she assumed was the garage. The garage is bigger than my room back home. Sakura could only gape at the line of vehicles parked all over the area. She saw a motorcycle parked away from all the others. Is that yours, Sasuke-kun? He grunted, which she assumed was, yes. Instead of heading towards the motorcycle, however, he headed towards a shiny red Porsche. Get in. Sakura complied, seating herself comfortably in the front seat. The moment she strapped in the seatbelt, he took off. Here, Sasuke tossed her a piece of paper, which was probably her school supplies list. She got out of his car, and stared at possibly the biggest store she had seen in all her life. It was even bigger than her town mall. Are you coming? By the tone of his voice, it seemed that he wouldn't mind leaving her all alone in the parking lot. Sakura hurried to catch up. Of course, with his looks and his family name, Sakura had expected him to be popular, but never this popular. The moment they stepped foot in the store, whispers escalated. Look, there's Uchiha Sasuke. Who's that with him? Is it his girlfriend? No way. Sakura unconsciously tagged closer to Sasuke, who was currently completely ignoring her presence. Girls who were shopping stopped to ogle the Uchiha and glare at the pink-haired female. Look at her forehead, it's so wide. My god, what an ugly girl. There's no way Sasuke-kun would choose an ugly girl like her. Sakura held her head up high, though the words did hurt inside, since it reminded herself of her childhood. Her hands shook at the sudden urge to go over to one of the gossipers and knock their teeth out. Before she could execute any sort of action, she felt a hand on her. She looked up, to see Sasuke had taken hold of her arm, and he had begun walking faster. Oh my god, he's touching her. What is he thinking? No. Sakura saw him roll his eyes slightly and she suppressed a giggle. So the Uchiha did have some emotions after all. He glared down at her when he heard her stifled laughs, and she immediately quieted down. She reached out and took his hand off her arm. When he looked at her, she smiled. It's okay. I won't get lost. She touched him. How dare her, I'm so going to kill her. With a laugh, Sakura tuned out the voices and happily followed Sasuke through the store. 45 minutes later, the two emerged out of the store with their arms full of shopping bags. Well, at least Sakura did. The two hadn't made much conversation when shopping, except Sasuke occasionally telling her that she was buying the wrong supplies. I'm starved. Sakura put all the bags in the back. I can hardly wait to get some food. The Uchiha made no comment in response, but Sakura decided that was normal. She closed her eyes as the car started to drive, savoring the, somewhat peaceful, silence. She was barely holding on to the edges of reality when she felt the car stop, and drowsily, her eyes opened. Are we there already? She sat up and glanced to her side, before her mouth dropped open and her eyes bulged out. Oh my god, where are we? Is this your mall? It's 10 times bigger than the store back over there, and I had thought that was humongous. Why are we here? Sasuke-kun? He had already gotten out of the car. You're less annoying when you don't talk. She looked down in embarrassment. Sorry. It's just a natural habit, I guess. When her head went up again, a smile was already back on her face. But, what are we doing here? Clothes. Clothes. My mother told me to get you clothes. Sakura followed him through the doors of the mall, but I have my own clothes. When he whipped around to look at her, she was sure his eyes flashed red. Had she annoyed him that much on this trip? Just do as I say. His words seemed to be forced out of his mouth, and instead of talking, it seemed he actually wanted to strangle her right there on the spot. Sakura, getting the message, shut her mouth. A few minutes passed as Sasuke took her deeper and deeper in the mall. Sakura was quite confused. There were clothing stores all around them, but he made no move to head to any of them. Didn't he know that she wanted to get clothes shopping over with so she could return to eat lunch? So lost in her thoughts, she never noticed he had stopped, and her face crashed right into his back. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. She was back to her normal chatter. Sasuke inwardly sighed. Old habits die hard, I suppose. This is the food court. But I thought we were going shopping for clothes. Eat first. Shop after. There was a squeal of happiness, and before the Uchiha could react, arms were around his neck as the girl hugged him. Thank you, thank you, thank you. He pushed her off when his senses came back around, but he could feel that the stares of the people that saw Uchiha Sasuke was shown public displays of affection. It was a sure sign that the end of the world was nearing. She seemed to realize what she did, and started to apologize all over again. Sasuke was ready to leave the ranting girl and just go home. He couldn't wait until this day was over. When Sasuke realized that the almost famished girl was just staring at the menu wistfully, he knew something wasn't quite right. They all look so delicious, the pink-haired girl remarked, earning a few weird glances from the girl behind the counter. After all, it was just another fast food store. But I can't buy any of it. Sasuke looked at her. What was she talking about now? I just realized I spent almost all of my money on school supplies. She smiled at him again, though her eyes told him that she was in despair. Was food this important to his small girl? But it's okay, Sasuke-kun. You can buy whatever you want. I can eat when we return. He rolled his eyes. As one of his classmates would say, this is troublesome. What do you want? She shrugged. I suppose I would have just gotten a burger and water. Her stomach's grunts in protest clearly told everyone within a 5 feet radius of her how hungry she really was. But like I said, I don't have any money and… Sasuke, what are you doing? He was ordering 2 burgers and waters from the counter girl, who need I mention, was blushing like crazy. He seemed oblivious to the pink-haired girl's protests as he took the food and headed towards the nearest table. When Sakura sat down across from him, he shoved the food over to her, though she was still busy protesting about him paying for her, that she didn't even notice. Eat. He ordered, since he was getting tired of her talk. Food in her mouth was sure to shut her up. Just give me back the money when we get back. She looked gratefully at him. Thank you, but aren't you eating anything? He didn't reply. He never did really have an appetite during lunch. He heard shuffling noises and looked down to see a burger under his nose. You have to eat. Her voice sounded almost like his mother. It's not healthy to skip lunch. With a sigh of annoyance, he grabbed the burger from her and took a bite. It was missing something. He saw the packet lying on the table. There was his solution. Sakura could only stare as the Uchiha boy poured the ketchup onto his burger. I like tomatoes. A burst of giggles escaped her. Tomatoes? Him? When he glared at her, she forced herself to shut up. Sasuke-kun, may I ask you a question? What is Konoha Academy for the gifted and talented like? Nothing much. How are the people in it? Okay. Are there any special after-club activities? I don't know. Sakura could have pulled her hair out in frustration. Please, Sasuke-kun, then could you tell me what you know about the academy? He was silent for a long while, when suddenly he met EHR eyes and they darkened. Everyone there worships the school's idol. Who, if possible? His eyes darkened even more. Itachi. Itachi? He graduated with full marks on everything all 4 years. Sakura wasn't sure if she was supposed to tell him that the ketchup was being squeezed out from his burger, since his hands were clenching it so hard. He was the top of everything, the genius, the prodigy. So that's why Sasuke is so cold to his brother. Sakura thought. He's always been in his shadow. All father did was praise him. Sasuke seemed to have now forgotten about her, and was mumbling to himself. Never anyone but him. Sakura raised an eyebrow. It seemed that the taciturn Uchiha could talk on about his brother forever. The word, Itachi, must really be taboo to him. She reached out her hand and gave him her most reassuring smile she could muster. Well, if Itachi is so great, you'll just have to try your best to surpass him, won't you? He stared at her, before he gave half a nod, and leaned back, as his emotionless mask slipped back into place. Sakura resumed her meal, happy that the tension between them had finally disappeared for the moment. "Excuse me? May we sit here, too? What was going on?" "No, oh please. Sasuke-kun?" Sakura looked up, and saw 3 beautiful model-worthy girls standing in next to Sasuke. All were slender-legged and long-armed with beautifully carved faces, perfected with spa and salon treatments. "I said no." Sakura glanced sharply at the boy across from her. What was he thinking? Rejecting these stunningly beautiful girls? She suddenly felt like she didn't fit in. She got up. "Sasuke-kun, you can stay here with these ladies. I'll just go shopping and come back when I'm done, okay? Sit down." There was no room for argument in his tone, and Sakura meekly retook her seat, feeling the pressure of the glares on her back from the 3 girls. "Sasuke-kun, you heard the girl. She needs to go buy clothes. Why don't you just let her?" "No." Sakura looked at the raven-haired boy. She could tell his patience was thinning, and he hardly had patience to begin with. "All right then," she decided. "It'll be Sakura to the rescue." I don't think Sasuke is in the mood for company right now, so, would it be so kind for you to No one was talking to you." The 3 girls turned their heads towards the poor pink-haired girl and lashed out at her. "Why are you even sitting here? Who the hell are you?" "Sasuke-kun, who's the brat?" Sakura felt herself shrinking back. Maybe trying to help wasn't such a good idea after all. "Will you all just shut up already?" a new voice joined. President." All the girls immediately complied. "I could hear you all the way across the food court. We're really sorry, we didn't mean it." Sakura couldn't see who the girls were talking to, but it was clear that whoever it was, she had the authority over all of them. Sasuke, on the other hand, who had a clear view of who the new person was, scoffed in disgust. It was the president of his fan club. "Now who's the poor girl you're picking on?" The 3 girls moved aside. Sasuke scowled. Now he had another fangirl to deal with, not to mention another bully to add on to Sakura's list. But of course, he never expected what would happen next. "Forehead girl." Sakura dropped her burger. Pig. "Do you have any idea how much I missed you?" Sakura lunged at the blonde girl, wrapping her in a hug. The 3 fangirls, shocked by the suddenness of the action, muttered their goodbyes to Sasuke and quietly slipped away. Sasuke himself was also in quite a bit of shock, though he didn't show it on his face. He never expected that the president of his fan club and his guest to know each other, not to mention they seemed like old friends. "You're soiling my new clothes, forehead girl." Her words were snotty, but her tone was affectionate. "I haven't seen you in 3 years." Sakura pulled away. "You've grown fatter, Pig." She laughed at Ino's mock gasp. Sasuke watched the exchange silently. Were they supposed to be insulting each other? Because it really wasn't that effective. "I'm surprised. Forehead girl. Your forehead doesn't seem so wide anymore." Ino laughed at Sakura's scowl. "Yeah, well I've got the beauty to match my brains, of course." Sakura noticed Sasuke still sitting there. "Oh, Sasuke, this is Yamanaka Ino. Ino, this is Uchiha Sasuke." "I know." Sakura watched in fascination as her friend turned to mush when Sasuke turned to face her. "You need to go shopping." His statement was directed at Sakura. "Oh." She smacked a hand to her forehead. "I'm really sorry, Ino, but I have to go clothes shopping." "I'll accompany you." Ino's sudden perkiness startled Sakura. She was sure that her old friend wanted to spend time catching up, but she was pretty suspicious that the majority of the reason why Ino wanted to tag along was because Sasuke was also there. She shrugged to herself. It didn't matter to her either way. "Sasuke-kun, doesn't this top look so cute on Sakura?" Sasuke, who was sitting on a chair just outside the fitting room, briefly glanced up to see a smiling Ino and blushing Sakura standing in front of him. "It all looks the same. Just hurry up." Ino pouted, before dragging Sakura back into the dressing room. "Ino, what were you thinking?" The still embarrassed girl got out of Ino's grip. "Do you have any idea how lucky you are to be living with Uchiha Sasuke?" Ino whispered in reply, looking around to make sure no other girls were listening. Sakura stared blankly at her friend. "So what does dragging me out have to do with that?" Ino sighed. "Sakura, a girl like me who knows everything about Sasuke-kun knows that you need to approach a guy like him subtly. If he looks at you, he'll also be looking at me, and slowly my image will be stuck in his mind. Understand?" Sakura's sweat dropped. "Hey, not really. Now hurry up and put on these jeans so we can go show Sasuke-kun." Outside, Sasuke found himself tapping his foot impatiently. He knew from the start that allowing the blonde to come would be a bad idea. At first, when they had just entered the store, Sakura had gone over to the plain-looking shirts. When that Ino had saw what her former best friend was considering to buy, she had made an over-exaggerated gasp before dragging Sakura over to the more elaborately designed tops. Didn't that girl know that they were wasting his time? He could feel the girls in the store staring as they came out of fitting room, and in his opinion, it was quite disturbing to have a 30-year-old woman stare at him like she wanted to take him home. It was hours later that the three finally emerged from the store, and Sasuke stood by silently while the two best friends exchanged cell phone numbers. When Ino came to hug him goodbye, he moved away, and Ino just laughed weakly. After all, she was familiar with his non-existent interest in woman contact. "I promise I'll pay you back," Sakura told him the moment Ino was out of sight. "Don't bother," he muttered, knowing that if his mother heard of what happened, she would never allow the girl to give him back his money. After all, like his mother would say, he was just treating the guest. He glanced down at his watch. He had wasted 4 hours wandering around pointlessly, and it was all that dumb blonde's fault. Annoying. Sakura heard him. Annoying. Her eyes saddened. Did I make him annoyed again? Sasuke took her bags from her and dumped them all in the back seat. The blonde. She butted in on things that weren't her concern. Sakura stared at him, automatically coming to Ino's defense. "Now that's unfair, Sasuke-kun. All Ino was doing was helping me. I didn't ask for your opinion. Sasuke-kun, I don't care if you didn't ask for it. Ino is my friend and I'm going to defend her." She turned to look outside the window. "You don't know what she has done for me. Without her, I wouldn't be." "I don't need to hear your sob story," he cut her off briskly. She clenched her fists. She had had it with his cold and arrogant attitude. "What about you? You act so cold towards everyone, but secretly, you're probably enjoying all the attention. I've met guys like you before. You reject all those girls in front of everyone, but you probably secretly have 3 to 4 different girls all hanging off your arm." The car swerved so suddenly that Sakura banged her head against window. "What did you just say?" His voice was cold, really cold. "Ow," Sakura rubbed her head. He came to an abrupt halt, and Sakura realized that they had returned. She stepped out of the car, to see Sasuke was already at the front door with her bags by his side. She wasn't done yet. Ino was an important person to her. The blonde was her savior in her cold and lonely childhood days. No one was going to get away with insulting her best friend. "I'm not done yet, don't run away." The front door was opened, and Sasuke slammed the door shut before she could step inside. She blinked a few times, surprised at herself on how she suddenly lost control. Suddenly, she felt someone behind her, and she turned around to see the older Uchiha standing there. Apparently, he had just returned from wherever he had gone that morning. "Did I overdo it?" she asked him, biting her lip. Sasuke has never had a girlfriend before. Itachi stepped up to her. "And he probably never will. My foolish little brother has no interest in women at all. He doesn't like people drawing false conclusions about him." He pushed open the door. "You should be cautious around him, he has a bad temper." Sakura moved in to follow him, but the door was slammed shut once again. How rude. Inner Sakura didn't believe she had made a mistake in yelling at the younger Uchiha. Logical Sakura sighed. Did I really make a mistake? Dinner that night was tense. Fugaku had another meeting and Itachi had wandered off to somewhere again. Makoto seemed unaware of what was going on, since she was still her cheerful self. Sakura hardly had an appetite. She bit her lip, wanting to break the awkwardness, but at the same time afraid that she would say the wrong thing again. Sasuke didn't even look in her direction, even though they were sitting right next to each other. "Excuse me," Sakura mumbled, suddenly feeling depressed. "I don't feel too well." She quickly hurried back to her room. "Sasuke." Sasuke looked up at his mother's voice. "I don't know what's going on, but you better apologize." So his mother wasn't as unaware as he had thought. He narrowed his eyes. "Why is it that my mother automatically assumes I'm the one at fault here?" His mother continued to look expectantly at him, and he scoffed, before scooting out of his chair and walking upstairs. There was no way he was apologizing to anyone. Uchiha Sasuke never apologized. Makoto watched her son go, and heaved out a sigh. It's only been a day and he's already mad at her. She smiled. Things are becoming more interesting. Uchiha Sasuke lay on his bed, wide awake and very unhappy. He had locked himself in his bedroom, and waited for the timid pink-haired girl to come walking in to apologize, except that she never did. At least an hour had passed, but there was still no presence of her. Who does she think she is? His brows creased. Does she think she can live in this house and act above me? He swung the door open, stepping out. He was definitely going to get an apology out of her. If there was one thing Uchiha Sasuke had a natural talent at, it was verbal assault. He swung open her bedroom door, only to be greeted by no one. He stepped out, having no idea where she went. The blow dryer was suddenly heard, and he realized she was in the bathroom. He knocked, but when no one answered, he gently pushed the door open. There she was, her back faced to him, already in her pajamas and drying her hair. Her eyes were closed and a small smile was on her face while she hummed some unfamiliar tune. He reached out and put a hand on her shoulder to get her attention and... Kya! Pervert! Her scream put him off guard, and a well-aimed punch to his cheek sent him staggering backwards. What the... Even someone as cold as Sasuke allowed 3 seconds of complete and utter shock to show on his face. And he had called her timid? Sakura opened her eyes, and she gasped, Sasuke. He opened his mouth to speak, but the girl cut him off. I'm so sorry for hitting you. I didn't know it was you. I'm so sorry. I wasn't even thinking. I'm so sorry. He waited for her to stop, but she continued on. And I'm sorry for saying what I said earlier. I'm sorry for making you mad. I'm sorry that I drew false conclusions. And I'm sorry. Shut up. He knew that he had come in on her with the intention for her to apologize, but now he was just sick of it. Gingerly, he brought a hand to his cheek and inwardly winced. Does it hurt? Her voice was laced with concern, guilt, and regret. No, damn, it stung. But Sasuke would never admit it aloud. Where did you learn to punch like that? She blushed as though recalling an embarrassing event. My father taught me. A girl has to be strong to survive, you know. Sasuke made a mental note to have a talk with her father. Well, his purpose was achieved. He had no more reason to stay. He turned around. Wait, her voice stopped him. I'm sorry, really. HN. He walked out. Does that mean I'm forgiven? She called after him. There was no reply. She turned back towards the mirror and continued on with drying her hair. Shanaru. He didn't apologize about Ino. Inner Sakura was not happy. Sakura sighed. Maybe another time. The small smile found itself back onto her lips. I'm glad that things are all right again. Uchiha Sasuke stepped out of the bathroom to see his mother walking away. His eyes narrowed. Had she been listening? Makoto smiled to herself. Things had turned out differently than she imagined, but at least the problems were resolved in the end. Poor thing, she thought about her youngest son. I just hope it won't bruise tomorrow. She continued along her way. Yes, things will be interesting indeed. Thanks for watching.